Hello and welcome to a new episode on What Does This Data Say? I am Ajay Prakash. There's an irony we cannot ignore. Many of the loudest voices demanding that India's children be taught a glorified mythical version of the past are themselves products of liberal, secular, science based education. They studied in good universities, many of them overseas, and still send their own children abroad. Yet they want the millions of Indian children to grow up on a diet of distorted history and pseudoscience. So the question is, has the BJP and the RSS ecosystem hijacked India's education system? The push to reshape India's education began quietly but firmly after 2014. In March 2017, more than 700 academics and vice chancellors from 51 universities gathered at an RSS-backed Prajna Prabha summit in Delhi called Gyan Sangam to discuss how to bring a nationalist narrative into textbooks and research. This is you can also see this story in the Caravan magazine of 2017. Discussions were on how to bring a nationalist narrative into education that are guided by the goal of decolonizing the Indian mind and intellect. The summit addresses concerns that Indian universities had become hubs of anti national activity and discussed integrating a nationalist viewpoint into the school syllabus and research. While the event specific recommendations were not publicly detailed, report and analysis of the associated movement provide insight into the proposed strategies. That meeting signaled that education was being treated as a key arena of ideological influence. Appointments to head universities and research councils increasingly reflected political alignment rather than academic standing. New central guidelines even allow non academics to become vice chancellors, a move many faculty members call a threat to merit based leadership. One of the most visible ideological insertions is the idea of Akhand Bharat. In some speeches and new textbooks, it is presented as if ancient India was one continuous Hindu empire stretching from Afghanistan to Myanmar. Historically, that is false. For most of our history, the subcontinent was a mosaic of kingdoms and shifting borders. Only occasionally, under the Mauryas or the Mughals, did large parts come under one rule. Yet this mythical map of Akhand Bharat is now painted on classroom walls and shown in some museums, creating the impression that today's borders are a loss of once united Hindu land. The same time, chapters on Mughal period have been cut, references to Gujarat 2002 riots have been removed, Darwin's theory of evolution has been questioned, and ancient India is portrayed as the birthplace of almost every modern invention. The objective is clear: to feed a political identity into the curriculum rather than teach evidence based history and science. This isn't just about a rhetoric on TV debates. Desh Ratan Nigam, a regular panelist, has claimed that the Taj Mahal was not built by Shah Jahan and that Delhi's Jama Masjid is not a mosque at all. He has appeared multiple times on TV and kept saying this from 2022 to 2024. He is not an historian, yet such claims get airtime and seep into the public discourse. RSS leaning textbooks committees have dropped or watered down chapters on Mughals, on caste based struggles, even on modern scientific discoveries that don't fit the preferred story. The paradox is glaring. Many of the leaders studied in liberal English medium universities and benefited from that openness. Their children often study or work in the US or Europe, yet they want Indian students to learn a simplified and often fictionalized golden Hindu past. The influence is spreading upward into higher education. The government recently created a scheme allowing Gurukul trained scholars, even without formal university degrees, to join research programs at India's top institutes, including the IITs, with fellowships up to 65,000 rupees a month. This story was published in the Economic Times this year earlier. Applicants can propose research in 18 domains ranging from Vedic philosophy and classical literature to mathematics, astronomy, economics, politics, and cognitive sciences. Supporters call it recognition of India's ancient knowledge. Critics, however, worry that bypassing standard academic training opens the door to ideological and untested ideas entering premier institutes. Universities too are opening Indian knowledge system departments. For example, Madan Mohan Malviya University of Technology in Uttar Pradesh plans to offer courses in Vedas and Vedic mathematics. The trend is still uneven. Not every IIT or central university has gone down this path, but the direction is unmistakable. A tilt towards cultural ideological framing in science and scholarship. Here the hypocrisy becomes almost poetic. Those who insist that Indian students must accept a filtered ideological version of history often make sure that their own children are educated in the world's most open, pluralistic universities abroad. According to the print, 12 ministers in the Modi government have sent their children to foreign universities. Examples include Piyush Goyal, whose daughter Radhika and son Dhruv studied at the Harvard, Nirmala Sitaraman, whose daughter Vangmai pursued a master's degree in journalism at Northwestern University in the United States. And then External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar, whose son Dhruv studied at Georgetown University in US and whose daughter Medha also studied in the US. A Times of India web story in 2025 lists 10 prominent politicians whose children studied abroad. The point isn't that studying abroad is wrong. Many would argue it brings valuable exposure, but the contrast is jarring. They avail the open critical systems of Western universities for their families while prescribing a constricted nationalist curriculum at home for everyone else. It undercuts the rhetoric of decolonizing education and rejecting Western influence. If the very people reshaping our textbooks don't trust that same system for their own families, why should they trust it for the rest of us? Now, what does this mean for the future? The cost is real. A generation that is taught to treat evidence as optional loses curiosity. A workforce raised on slogans instead of critical reasoning is less innovative and less prepared for the modern world. When classrooms become platforms for propaganda, a nation's long term competitiveness erodes. This isn't just about ideology, it's about the future of India's human capital. India's civilizational strength has always been diversity and debate, from the scholars of Nalanda to the modern scientific community. If debate is stifled and facts are bent to suit politics, that legacy is betrayed. We need a curriculum that equips the young to think critically, ask questions, and test ideas against evidence, not to memorize myths or political slogans. The fight over textbooks is really a fight over the minds of the next generation, free thinkers or passive followers. Before we end, think about this at a personal level. Education is not just about what our children memorize for exams. It's the lens through which they see the world. If our schools keep replacing evidence with ideology, if they keep teaching that ancient myths are proven science, then we are raising a generation cut off from the global knowledge. Your children and grandchildren will grow up in a classroom that looks backward, not forward. Think of what that means in a world where science, technology, and new ideas decide prosperity. If we keep feeding fairy tale history and distorted science, then in 20 years, India will find itself educationally isolated, living in its own storybook version of the past while the rest of the world moves ahead. Who will hire graduates who can't separate evidence from belief? Who will trust research from universities that prioritize ideology over fact? And then ask yourself, what future will your own children or grandchildren have in such a country? Will they have to leave to find a real education abroad, just like the children of the very leaders who brought us here? This is why the debate over school textbooks is not a culture war. It's a fight over whether the next generation will have the tools to survive and succeed in a real world. The choice is stark: progress rooted in evidence or decline trapped in myths. The future of your family and of your country depends on which we choose. If you found this discussion valuable, do subscribe to our channel, share this episode with your friends. It helps us keep bringing you fact driven conversations that really matter. Thank you for watching.